Hello, everybody. Welcome to Townsend 505. My name is Nick. Uh, Joining me again on this awesome series is Jacob Martin from Jacob Martin. We are continuing the Johnny Cash series. We've reached season 2. Yes.
Woohoo!
Yeah, season premiere. That's crazy. Such a short season last season, but don't worry, this is going to be a pretty long season. These next 2 seasons are going to be super long. So if a long season was what you wanted, well, that's what you're going to get. And if you didn't want a long season, well, it is what it is. But how are you doing today on this fine evening?
Oh, I am doing very well. I'm excited to talk about another Johnny Cash album. And this one, such a strange album, I gotta tell you.
Yeah. Do you want to give your brief thoughts on the album before we start?
Yeah, I'll share that. I couldn't find as much background information on this album compared to previous ones, but this was his first album released in the 1960s. It was released on May the 2nd of 1960. And the most fascinating thing about this album is the entire album is all covers of classic country standards. There's songs here that were recorded originally by artists such as Hank Williams, George Jones, Ernest Tubb, and Marty Robbins, who were prominent artists around the time as Johnny Cash. Some of these were before Johnny Cash. And Johnny covered the songs on this album. Only one single was released from this album. And I'll reveal what that is when we start diving into the tracks. This album was a blind spot for me. I thought I knew none of the songs, but I actually was familiar with one of the covers, but the original version of it. And then one song that's on this album, I actually heard the song, but it was a different name, and that's a fascinating story in itself. This album, like, it's okay. It's cool that he's doing these covers, but I don't know. Some of these songs just got samey after a while. We'll dive into it, but there's some like production choices on this album, which, yeah, it's kind of cool that it's more of a traditional country sound compared to the rockabilly that made him so popular. But at the same time, I'm like, it's weird hearing this side of Johnny Cash at the same time. So I've listened to this album twice, and I'm like it's an okay album, but I'll just say it off the bat, it's my least favorite of the 7 albums we've covered so far.
Okay. My brief thoughts. I really like this album. I actually like the different turn he does on it. It's definitely interesting. Definitely not his norm. I will agree with that. It's not his norm to do this. This isn't like his normal shtick, but I respect the heck out of him for trying. I liked every song on this album a lot, but I couldn't put myself to giving this a 10 out of 10, and you'll find out why more. But I wouldn't say this is my least favorite song on the album, but this isn't as highly rated as some of his other albums.
Gotcha.
I do like this album better than the 2 compilation albums, but compared to his other studio albums, this is, if we're going by technicality, this is my least favorite Johnny Cash studio album. If we're going by technical, if we're being really technical about it, because if we're being honest, the compilation albums are really studio albums. If we're being honest, but if we're being technical, and this is my least favorite studio album. But enough of that banter. Let's get to the actual songs on the album. The first track on the album, "Seasons of My Heart."
All right, so this is the one song on this album that was a hit single. It went up to number 10 on the country charts in 1960. This is another blind spot. I was not familiar with this song. I've not even heard the original version of this song. This was a cover originally recorded by George Jones, who's a fantastic country artist in his own right. Uh, I thought this was a fine song. I think what makes the song really good is Johnny Cash's baritone vocals. I will say, kicking off this album, just hearing the different sound, it is so weird hearing a fiddle and steel guitar in a Johnny Cash song. Like I was not used to, I was not expecting that going into this album, and so hearing that, I'm like, am I listening to the right album? What is this? Nothing against those instruments. I love that sound in country music. I love the traditional sound of country music. That's kind of like my bread and butter. But it was just kind of off-putting when I'm first listening to the album. But listening to it again, I'm like, yeah, this is a good song, very well written. I love the vocal delivery on the track. Um, I'm surprised this was the only song released as a single. There's one other song on this album, and I'm like, yeah, there's another song on this album that should have been like a big hit for him. That didn't happen, but yeah, this song's fine. It's probably my top 5 on this album. So
This is also in my top five on the album. I think this is quite good. I really like the different instrumentations on it. I think it works quite well. It works in his favor. Johnny Cash just has such a good voice; it works for him. It's not coming off as him trying to do something that he's not supposed to be doing. Um, in theory, this shouldn't work because he's not used to doing this, and he never did this before on an album. But here he is doing it now. But it works. I think this is a good opener. I quite like it. But we now get to the next song on the album. I feel better all over.
okay, so this is the song that surprised me that I felt like should have been a hit because I really like this one. It's one of my favorites on the album. I think the main reason I really like this is it still has their traditional sound, but it leans closer to his roots with like the rockabilly stuff along with it. So I think he was trying to blend the styles together on the song, and that's I think what I really respected about this more than anything else. It's a very catchy song. Johnny has a higher melody near the end of the song where he's like, I feel better all over. I'm like, that's probably the highest I've ever heard Johnny Cash hit a note near the end of the song. I'm like, okay, that was different, and it actually works for him, and he still sings good on it. I do really like this one. I don't think any song on this album I'd say is top tier Johnny Cash, but I think of all the songs on the album, this is probably the most memorable one. I would say.
I I like this song. I think it's really good, but this is probably towards the bottom of my ranking of the songs. Um, I still liked it a lot. I still enjoyed it. Uh, I didn't find anything wrong with it, but yeah, it's towards the bottom of my ranking. To be honest, nothing against it, just not one of my favorites. I would say it is memorable, but it's just not one of my favorites,
Gotcha.
in my opinion. But we follow up that track to "I Couldn't Keep from Crying."
Yeah, this is another really good track as well. I think Johnny can pull off songs about heartbreak, and I think it works in his favor. I think this is a good like cry after a breakup type songs, and I respect him for doing it. Again, nothing like I said on the last song, nothing about this album is top tier, but I do think this is one of the stronger tracks on the album.
Yeah, I think this is a really good song on the album. This made my top five. Um, yeah, this is another great song on the album, in my opinion. Um, yeah, just another solid effort. I really like the old style country of this song. I think Johnny Cash sings really well on it. Here's the underlying issue, though, and I wanted to save this at the end, but I'm just gonna say it now. Uh, we're missing the Jordan years on this one.
Yes.
If the Jordan years were on this album, this would be one of my favorite albums from him.
Yeah, I don't know if they ever come back and do another Johnny Cash album going forward. I don't know if that was the case or not.
I don't
But
know either.
they were sorely missed on this album. I think they could have provided great backing vocals to, especially on some of the sadder songs on this album. But yet without that, it's just, I mean, these songs are fine, but I think they would have added an extra layer to these songs and probably would have made the song stand out more.
Definitely. I mean, I still like the song a lot, but that's just the elephant in the room for me. The lack of Jordan years after having the Jordan years a lot from previous albums, it's kind of a weird.
Yeah.
It's like empty. I remember you telling me directly, you're like, there's something about this album that's off about it, and I'm like, probably because this is like the first album without the Jordan years, really.
Yeah, I think they were at least on the second album, the gospel album, and the Songs of Our Soil, at least.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just definitely sorely missed.
Yeah.
But when we get to the next track on the album, Time Changes Everything.
Yeah. This is another solid track as well. This, I would say, is probably in my top 5 as well. I do like the lyrical content on the song about the passage of time. I think that's a very relevant song because of that, because, things do change over time. Not everything stays the same. I think that concept's been done better in other songs, but I think it's short and sweet. There is a little bit of a catchiness to it, and I think it's one of the better tracks on the album.
This is one of my favorite songs on the album too. I really like this song. I like when I first heard the song, I'm like, "Whoa, this song's incredible." I don't really have a whole lot to say about it though. That's another small problem about this album is that I enjoy it, but I don't really have too much to say.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's nothing for me to really add. It's just, this is really good. That's about it. I'm not trying to knock it or anything, but I still really enjoy it. But yeah, there's nothing really much to talk about. It's just a really good song.
Yeah, that's kind of my problem with this album too. Like, I think, especially when we get to the second half of the album, it's like some of these songs just feel very samey to me, and they kind of come in one ear and out the other.
Yeah,
That's how I feel about the album as a whole.
yeah. But we get to the next track on the album. My shoes keep walking back to you. I'm curious as to what you're going to say about this, Jacob, because your username is hinting towards something.
I just did that particularly because I thought it would stand out.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I wasn't really that crazy about this song. The hook of this song I thought was incredibly stupid. Like, my shoes keep walking back to you. I'm like, that's the corniest title. I think that alone made it probably my least favorite song on the album. And I think by this point, it's like, I think I was getting to the point where I started to get zoned out on this album because I think a lot of the songs after this started to feel repetitive in the way they sounded. But the only reason this is my least favorite song on the album is the hook. I'm not too crazy about the hook.
It's good for me. I liked it. It's not in my top 5. I'll say that. It's good though. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I wish I could say more, but you kind of summed it up well. The hook is a little goofy, but that's the only real memorable thing about it, and it's memorable for kind of the wrong reason. But I still enjoy it though. I still think this is a good song. We get to the last song on side 1. I'd just be a fool enough to fall.
This one's a kind of another boring song in my opinion. It's like these two songs are kind of interchangeable for me. They just sound the same. At least this one doesn't have the dumb hook as the last song, so I guess that elevates it a little bit. But I, there's just not much for me to say about this one. The production's good, but that's about it.
Like I said, I enjoyed every song on this album, but this is my least favorite on the album. If I had to pick, this is the one I'm gonna go to back. I'm gonna go back to this one the least amount. I probably won't ever go back to this song, to be honest. It's one of those songs that I like at the moment, but won't go back to kind of things. It's good. Again, like my top 5 songs, I like. I mean, my like 1 through 6, like my top 5 and my number 6, I like a lot. But everything below it, it's just good. But we flip over. We flip the record. Just let's pretend this. Let's pretend this is the album. Pretend.
I do know. I will share this story before we go on. There is a connection with Johnny Cash and Elton John. They hosted. They were on Saturday Night Live together at one point in the '80s, and as a joke, they decided to swap each other's outfits. So Elton John dressed as the Man in Black, and Johnny Cash dressed up in some of the more outlandish Elton John outfits.
This isn't a good example, but
seeing Johnny Cash dressed up as Elton John is one of the goofiest things you'll ever see, but it was hilarious.
That's funny. That's a cool little tidbit. But that's actually a cool fun fact. I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't know that actually.
Yeah.
But we get to the next song on the album, Cocaine Blues. I mean, Transfusion Blues.
Yeah. It kind of spoiled the thing that frustrated me about that because, one, I did not know Johnny Cash recorded this song before the Folsom Prison album. But I assume he changed the title because the original line might have been controversial in 1960 because it's Cocaine Blues. I also didn't know that it was a cover. I thought this was a Johnny Cash song originally, so I didn't know that. That was a fun fact. And I'm like, yeah, this is probably the most rockabilly of all the songs on the album. Like, this could have been on his previous albums and people would have gotten into it fine. And the production is pretty cool, but to me, what brings it down, changing it from cocaine to transfusion, I think dumbs down tones down the edginess of what made what he later did, much better and makes it stand out. And so I think that kind of knocked it down a few pegs. If I want to hear this song, I'll just do the Folsom Prison version because it's a lot stronger.
I'm in agreement with you on this. It's my second favorite song on the album, but if it was Cocaine Blues, this would easily be the best song on the album.
Yeah.
That's what's keeping it. Like, I want this to be my favorite song on the album. It has all the makings of being my favorite song on the album, but simply censoring the song kind of knocks it down a little bit for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not enough for it to be like, oh, this song sucks, but it's enough for it to not be my favorite song on the album. I really wanted it to be because I love the Cocaine Blues song on the live album. And I really like how it originated here, but yeah, I'm not a fan of the censorship.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, like transfusion, really?
I know.
Like what?
I had no idea what he was going for there.
Yeah, could have just said. What would have been a better word substitution? Because I think if people were scared of the use of the drug, you could have still used it to say drugs are bad. I think that's the point of the song.
Exactly. It's not like Johnny Cash is like, hey, you better sniff up that coke or else you are not cool. Like, he's kind of like going through like all the downfalls of Cocaine Blues, but
yeah,
I don't know. 1960.
Well,
Yeah.
this came out. This came out in the time when people were upset at the movie Psycho because the toilet was flushed. So,
Oh, it's funny. I mean, this was like back when the having a toilet on the album cover was seen as bad. So I don't really take the '60s that seriously. But having that said, like I said, I enjoy this song, but this would have been really, really above and beyond if had it been the original version. Well, the way it was. Uh, we follow up that track with "Why Do You Punish Me for Loving You."
um, okay, now we're back to forgettable songs on this album. This is another one where it's like I feel like I've heard this same song twice already, and the third time it's like, okay, can we have more variety again, like in the other albums? This one's just another one that's just there.
Yeah, it's good. This is a part of the latter category of the songs that are towards the bottom of my list. There's the first half of the list that I really like, and then there's the second half. This is part of the second half. I like it. It's fine. It doesn't offend me. Like I said, I like. I keep saying this. I like every song on the album, but again, this is part of the category of songs that I'm not really gonna like actively seek for it, and I have to listen to this. It's just, it's good. I enjoy it. That's about it. Uh, we go to the follow up track. I will miss you when you go.
Okay. This one I like in comparison to some of the other tracks that I'm not as big on. I think the hook is pretty good. I do remember this one a little bit more than like the Shoes Keep Walking and the Punish Me and the Fool one. Still not a great song. This one, I guess, can still feel samey, but I think the hook is solid. And if I had to rank this, this would probably be an honorable mention.
Again, this is good. This is part of the latter category of songs. Again, it's good. I like it. Uh, I thought it was a really enjoyable song. But will I ever go back to this song? No, no, not at all. I mean, I will if I listen to the album, but like I'll never skip it. But I'll never like actively like, hey, I have to listen to this kind of songs. But yeah, it's good. I like it. Uh, Short, sweet, to the point. I like it. That's about it. We get to the next track on the album. I'm so lonesome I could cry.
All right. All right. So this song I am familiar with, but not the Johnny Cash version. This was a Hank Williams song. It's one of Hank Williams' best known and most beloved songs. In my opinion, it's one of the saddest songs in country music history, dealing with loneliness. And I think Hank sung this song masterfully. It's an amazing song. A little nervous hearing Johnny Cash covering it because I'm like, there's no way he's going to top the brilliance of what Hank Williams did. And I'm going to say, no, he doesn't come close, but it's still a really great cover. And I'm just going to spill the beans. This is my favorite song on the album. I think Johnny does a great job vocally in capturing the spirit of what Hank Williams did in the original track. I do think he makes it his own a little bit, even with it having the steel guitar on it, which again an odd choice for Johnny Cash, the Man in Black, but he still does a good job on here. I think it's a really well done cover. I still prefer Hank's version, but to me, out of all the songs on this album, Johnny Cash's his cover of this song is easily the song I'm going to remember After we finish this live stream and listening to the album.
Yeah, I actually thought this was a really good song on the album. This is part of the first category of songs that I really enjoy, and this didn't make my top five, but man, this was a really close contender of the top five. This is a strong, strong honorable mention, to say the least. Another great song on the album. Um, yeah, this is another awesome song by Johnny Cash, in this old honky tonk style country music. I enjoy it. We get to the next track on the album, Just One More.
All right, so he's covering George Jones again. Much like Seasons of My Heart, I've not heard the George Jones original. But when hearing the song, I could tell that I'm sure this is an amazing George Jones song. And if you're familiar with George Jones and his life story, George Jones was a notorious alcoholic. And it got him in trouble many, many times. And he eventually sobered up the older he got, because that drinking nearly killed him at one point. It was that bad. He had a song later in his career called "If Drinking Don't Kill Me, Her Memory Will." It was that bad. So this was like early in his career, I guess, when the problems were just getting started. And so I think when you put that in perspective, this is a really, really depressing song because it's about over drinking. I'm sure the George Jones version is amazing. The Johnny Cash version, on the other hand, he pulls off the sadness of this song, but it feels like a man covering another man's song, and the other man is a definitive version. Like, I don't think this matches with his Hank Williams cover, which we previously talked about, but I would say he still sings it well. This would be another honorable mention. This one's pretty solid, I thought.
This is another one of the songs I really enjoyed. This is part of the. This is the last of the 6 songs I really enjoyed from this album. Yeah, this is a amazing song. I really, really enjoyed it. This barely made it onto my top 5. This and the last song were really fighting to be in my number 5 spot, but this one barely slipped into my top 5. It's really, really good. Yeah, quite enjoyed the song. Pretty cool. But we get to the last song on the album, "Honky Tonk Girl."
The song was okay. I think it's sort of catchy to me. It's got, again, the production on it's pretty good. And I do think it's a step up from some of the more slower, forgettable tracks on this album that I think are repetitive. But I still don't think it's that great of a song, in my opinion. It's kind of a way to close the album. I think if he had closed it on "I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry," I think that would be a really awesome way to close out a so-so album. But this song's just, man, in my opinion.
I enjoy this song, but I'm in agreement with you. This is one of the weaker ways that it's a kind of a weak way to close out the album. I don't get why this had to be the album closer. Yeah, it's good. I'm not. I don't think it's bad by any means. It's fine. It's a good song, but man, like, you know, it's weird. You have like 2 great songs that could have been the closing tracks. You could have picked any one of those 2 tracks of the previous 2, but you chose this song. But it is what it is. But what's your top 5 going to be?
All right, top 5. I have 2 honorable mentions, which are "I Will Miss You When You Go," and the one closest to being in the top 5, my number 6, is "Just One More." So, top 5. Number 5 is "Seasons of My Heart." Number 4, "Time Changes Everything." Number 3, "I Couldn't Keep From Crying." Number 2, I Feel Better All Over, and easily coming in number one, I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry.
Cool. My big honorable mention is gonna be I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry. My number 5 is gonna be Just One More. Number 4, I Couldn't Keep From Crying. Number 3, Seasons of My Heart. Number 2, Transfusion Blues, and my favorite song on the album, Time Changes Everything.
Okay, that's a good choice.
Thank you. Yeah, this song was love this song. Um, but yeah. What are you gonna rate this album?
All right. I feel sacrilege for saying this because it's Johnny Cash. He's one of my favorite country artists. But I'm only going to go 6 out of 10 on Now There Was a Song. I don't think it's a terrible album. I respect him for trying to have a more traditional sound, paying respect to the artists that came before him, even though it does feel kind of off putting. But my main problem with this album is like there's a good chunk of this album where there are some really boring tracks. And the songs just felt very repetitive, some of the slower, sadder songs on this album. Now there's some that do stand out, like I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry, and I think I Can't Keep From Crying, I think are 2 good songs on this album. But this is probably this one doesn't stand out compared to his other albums with his signature sound. I would actually rate the 2 compilation albums we've reviewed higher than this album. I think some of those albums stand out to me more. It's like some of the better songs on those stand out than some of the songs on this album. But it's an okay experiment. I don't think I'll listen to it again anytime soon. There are a couple highlights, but it's not my favorite.
Okay, I'm gonna give this a 9.5 out of 10.
Wow.
I wanted to give this a 10 out of 10 because I enjoyed everything on the album, but for one, no Jordanaires. Number 2, the album closer isn't the greatest. Lastly, number 3, not all the songs make me want to go back to it that much. But the 4 albums I gave 10 out of 10, I feel like those albums like I'm gonna go back to a lot more. Every song on the album invites you to come back. Half the album on this album is amazing. That's why it's even as high as it is. But the lower, my least favorite songs on the album kind of bring the album down. But yeah, like I said, in terms of his studio albums, this is my least favorite album as of now. If we're talking about overall, this is third last.
Yeah.
But so overall, as you can tell, a little weak of a season premiere, but maybe the next episode will more than make up for that. I know it does for me. We get to the very next album in his catalog in the '60s, "Ride This Train," which is the next concept album. Yeah, yet another concept album about trains.
Yeah, that album is a blind spot. I was looking up the track listing, and I have not heard a single song from that album.
Yeah.
So it's kind of odd. This will be like the one time that you know more about a Johnny Cash album and songs than I do. So
I know. It's pretty funny, right?
That's crazy.
Yeah, I really enjoy this album, so I'm looking forward to reviewing it. But you have any last things you want to say before we close out for tonight?
Well, I could walk away, but as soon as I think I'm done, my shoes bring me back in. Loosely paraphrasing The Godfather 3. That was bad.
That was funny.
Oh, man.
My final words are Obladi Oblada, Habba Dabba, life goes on. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. So long.